Welcome back to the news at 10. Let's quickly take you to our discussion on the recession status of Nigeria, where the National Bureau of Statistics earlier in the week released figures showing a negative 2.06% decline in GDP for Nigeria. I'm being joined on the news at 10 by our in-house data analyst, Babajide Ogunsoji. You've been watching very closely the economy and seeing what the figures have been coming out from the National Bureau of Statistics. Now, how bad are these GDP figures? Do we have to be concerned?
Yes, we have to be concerned because there are three major things that are on the lips of the Nigerian public today. What are these three things? The first is, how bad is the recession? The second is, how quickly can we get out of the recession? And the third is, perhaps, is there really a recession? And the evidence that we have from the National Bureau of Statistics shows us that if we look at the GDP in the first quarter of this year compared to the first quarter of last year, we will see a decline of 0.41%. Now, if we also look at the GDP of the second quarter of this year compared to the second quarter of last year, you will find a decline in real GDP of 2.20%. The challenge is, in 1929 and the early 1930s, when the United States were in the Great Depression, they redefined the word recession to mean a decline in real GDP of 2 consecutive quarters. The evidence today shows that even though we are in the economic danger zone, we are really not yet witnessing 2 consecutive quarters of decline in real GDP. So here's what it means. If you look at the GDP of the first quarter of this year compared to the last quarter of last year, you will see a decline of 13.91%. However, if you look at the second quarter GDP compared to the first quarter GDP of this year, you will notice a marginal increase of 0.73%. So here's what it all means. It means perhaps we need to look at how we want to define what recession means, because going by the US standard of 2 consecutive quarters of decline in real GDP, we still don't have 2 consecutive quarters of decline in real GDP. So what we have is we're in an economic danger zone, but we are not really yet in that word recession.
Okay, but you know, of course, going to the market, for example, food prices have sometimes doubled in some cases. The recent one we're seeing is the price of cement, as we saw in that report before we went on break. It has gone up by at least 50%. Is this normal at this time of the season?
No, it's not. But here's the challenge with cement prices that people are complaining about. The challenge is really not that cement prices are increasing. The challenge is people's income are not increasing faster than cement prices. So if incomes had gone up faster than cement prices, we won't have these problems. So with an inflation rate of 17.13%, it simply means only 2 things. The first is, yes, prices are going up. But here's the second thing it also means, that the real value of income is declining. The last time we had an inflation rate of 17.13% was in October 2005. That is over a decade ago. That is the challenge we have at the moment.
Okay, let's look at the current economic situation. Is it reversible? Do you suppose that this trend of, you said it's not really in a recession, we may have to define what we mean, maybe for the Nigerian context, what we mean by recession. But is this reversible? People are suffering. Buying a bag of rice that used to be 13,000 naira is now 19,000 naira.
It's reversible, but all the indices, there are 3 major indices that could reverse it. But those 3 indices even show greater problems. Now, these 3 indices are looking at how and how much families currently have. The second is looking at the potential of the government to spend itself out of recession. And the second is looking at the industries and looking at that sector, both the SMEs and the corporate sector, that can also assist. But let's first of all look at what the CBN says about the situation with savings and fixed deposit that the Nigerian families have. Here's what they say. They say in 2015, at the end of 2015, we had 11.9 trillion naira in all savings and fixed deposit of private families. Now, that is 600 billion naira lower than what it was in 2014. The last time we had a year-on-year decline of savings account value that private families had was in 1989. That's almost 3 decades ago. So what it means currently is looking towards individuals and families like us to spend our way out of this economic danger zone is very unlikely. Looking at the opportunity for the government as well to spend itself out of a recession is also unlikely, because we've seen our oil revenue has been declining significantly. In 2011, for instance, we exported 14.3 trillion naira worth of oil. That declined in 2012 to 14.2 trillion, declined in 2013 to 14.1 trillion, declined in 2015 last year to just 8.1 trillion. It all means that the government has less money and is perhaps not able to spend itself out of recession. And finally, looking at the NPR, which everybody complains about, that the rate of 14% is too high. Let's look at it simply, Gimba. When the NPR was launched in 2006, December, what was the NPR rate when we then went into January 2007? 10%. How many times has the NPR rate been 14% or above? It has never been. Now, here's what all of this means. Nobody can accurately tell us when we will be out of this economic danger zone.
Jide Uguzo, I want to thank you so much indeed, our in-house data analyst, for throwing more light on the, as you said, it's not a recession, but the National Bureau of Statistics says that it is a recession indeed. Many thanks for talking to us. Residents of Agbama community in Umuahia South local government area have called on the government to brace up to the task of maintaining socio-economic infrastructure. The residents expressed concerns on the poor state of the roads and indiscriminate dumping of refuse. Tonight, our community report looks at the situation and the government's plan to end these challenges.
Now you're talking. A tour of the housing estates in Umuahia's north and south local government areas in Abia State revealed that there are certain places where infrastructure needs attention, a case which has for a long time frustrated residents.
It's not a good story. Number one, in terms of the road infrastructure, we consider it a disaster, because a whole lot of people are passing through terrible situations, accessing and visiting this place. And when you consider the population and the class of people living within this area, you will know that this is a place that's supposed to be given first charge attention in terms of infrastructure.
Because people are no longer parking there, you can see the gutters. Nobody parks. They don't put, when they put the gutter, they don't even put gutter for people to pass through it and park their cars inside. It would have been better they don't even start walking on the road that would cause people all this mess.
But more than government working on the roads is a need to urgently address a matter that poses a huge threat to the health of the residents. Unsightly scenes of refuse heaps. And there is no time that this indiscriminate dumping does not happen, an act that sets residents on warpath.
Which down? Why is it going down? Go down the valley. These things are health hazards. You can see. Yeah, it's been a disturbing aspect of our stay here. A terrible health hazard. You know, it can lead to a lot of things. During the rainy season, the odor does not allow us. Dry season, the same thing. The flies everywhere.
In fact, I'm always feeling. I always contact cold and catarrh every time. I've just come back from buying Procol. This is what I have been suffering because of the odor here. It's not allowed. We can't even stay in our parlor. We can't come out. That parlor is just locked like that. We always stay at the backyard of my own apartment.
All these issues have not gone unnoticed by the authorities. But are they up to the task of solving the problems?
All these things are coming up at the same time, and there is no way all of them can be paid attention to at the same time because the resources are not there. The state governments, have not been receiving enough money, enough funds, not to talk of local governments. So with the payment of teacher salaries, worker salaries, and taking care of other things. So certainly the local governments will require the assistance of the state government, and the state also is battling with its own challenges.
It appears that the hands of the body who can rescue the situation are tied, which leaves the people with no other option but to carry on operating in indiscipline.
I made them here, then begin to explain to them.
Etisalat, now you're talking.
And now to the arts. Matter of the Heart and Mind is an exhibition at the Thought Pyramid Center in Abuja. The artist Zainab Shuaibu talks about issues in the society using different media. On Art Review tonight, we'll look at Zainab's solo exhibition. It's a beautiful afternoon, and all roads lead to the Thought Pyramid Art Center in Abuja to see what Zainab Shuaibu has to offer in her solo exhibition titled Matters of the Heart and Mind. One after the other, they file in to have a glimpse of the works of art with soft music at the background. They take time to enjoy matters of Zainab's mind, issues that are all too familiar. Some of the work centered on politics, emotions, human trafficking and prostitution, amongst others. She explains what was going through her mind when creating them.
This is called disgruntlement, and I have called it that because as a nation we have a lot of agriculture. It's what we're known for. We're one of the strongest in Africa, and we tend to abuse that by polluting. And this is what the trees represent, our dying crops, our dying resources, and I think it needs to change.
For many of the art enthusiasts who have turned up to see the show, some of them family members, it's an emotional journey to see Zainab find her voice through expressions that exude youth and vibrancy.
Just like other artists, individuals have their own innermost expressions. They have their own view of things. But I think what she's trying to emphasize is the world, how complex the world is. But at this
She has a word for young artists like herself: focus.
Feel uncomfortable to start anything, don't feel like you have any boundaries. I think you should just do what your mind tells you to do and don't let anyone distract you.
Gender equality, disgruntlement, and mind of a hostage are just a few of the works of art that mirror society, so all hands can be on deck to make the world a better place. Next on the news at 10, Mercedes driver Nico Rosberg wins dramatic Italian Grand Prix, cuts Lewis Hamilton's lead to 2. That's on Sports News. Stay with us.